Intro chat with Merrill's live, digging deep where techs thrive. From the latest hacks to cool updates, join the ride, don't be late.
Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Entra Chat. Today I'm joined by a very special guest all the way from Tel Aviv in Israel. Sapir Fedorowski is joining us. She's a security researcher at CrowdStrike and she's worked in a number of different roles. But I'm really keen on getting her view in this world of identity, threat research, and so on. And she's someone who is early in career, so a lot different from the other guests we've had in the past. And I want to really get your view, Sapir, on how you see the world and the challenges you face and what guidance and tips you can give others. You start so many interesting discussions. We always catch up on Twitter and Blue Sky and so on. And you're always someone who's always learning, and you're sort of asking questions and sharing the things that you learn, which I find really useful. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So first of all, it's funny because you said I'm in my early career, and I am. But if you ask people around me, in CrowdStrike or my friends, I have a lot of friends at home from the military service, so they are also in the security industry, and for them,
right,
I'm not in my early career. I'm like the expert of, because they're not aware of what's going on out there. So for me, I'm like maybe 3 years in Entra research.
Yes.
And sometimes I forget I have a lot to learn. So that's funny.
We all have a lot to learn. Like me working even in the Entra team, I learn a lot. So I don't think it ends.
Exactly. And I also, you touched every topic that I wanted to speak about, but I leave it for later.
Yes.
So about me, I work at CrowdStrike. I'm specifically in the identity protection group. So I do a lot of identity research, also on-prem and Active Directory and Entra.
Yes.
Before that, I worked for Semperis, which is also an identity security company. That was my first job in the real world, because before that I was in the military, so it's kind of real job, but not really. So
it's more
I was
real.
it was
say it's more real than others.
A bit more than 4 years, but it's exactly. We're getting back to the point of being in the early career. So when you're in the army, you're surrounded with people in your age, give or take. So you don't have these 20 years in the industry experts. So you don't expose to the new things, the interesting things. You're not there. You're more like Windows XP stuff. So
right.
So I kind of adopted the identity niche for me when I was in the end of the military service. And I think the first thing that was pure identity for me was the Wagging the Dog article by Elad Shamir. I read it 6 times, I think. And then he interviewed me for Semperis because he worked there.
Oh, okay.
He interviewed me. And in the end of the interview, he asked me okay, I have some time. Do you want to talk about something? And I was like, okay. So I have 100 questions. And I think that was the place where I discovered that I don't know anything. And there are people out there that work in this thing for decades. And I have so much to learn. So that's what the getting into the real world was the things that started everything. And when I started to work in Semperis, so I didn't know anything about cloud, because when you come from the army, you mostly know on-prem stuff, like Windows, low-level Windows and stuff like that. And then there wasn't any official training. It was a very small team. So they were like, okay, go to the Microsoft training. You have this documentation with a bit of, so just start, enjoy. You have 2 weeks, go for it. And I think that 6 months later, I submitted to troopers and
Right.
Entra tool. So it was
Nice.
crazy. Yeah.
Nice. That's very interesting. And it's interesting you say about going into Semprace and like learning from everyone who's been there 20 years. And I feel the same way working in the Entra team. The people I work with have been here for like 20 plus years. They've been through the birth of Azure AD, Entra ID, like from the beginnings of how the service was built. And like they'll forget more things than I'll ever learn. Right. So
I can
it's
relate
all
to that.
that perspective, right? Of how
Exactly.
for each of us, like we look up to folks who've done these things quite a lot, and yeah, this podcast and the stuff that we all do is a way to share those little things that we learn with the wider community. Cool. So it was all XP, but there was a time uh, that was all Windows XP and things you had to do. So how did you find that, like going into the Microsoft Learn site, and it, it's hard to just read stuff and
It
do,
is.
right?
It is. So at some point, I figured out that I learn better when I watch like um talks
Right.
about attacks, because when and also blog posts, because when someone explains the attack
Mm.
first, it really writing a deep dive about the topic, and then it described the attack. And then so the first video I watched was from Troopers 19. It was Dirk Jan talk about some attacks in Entra. It was like, I think, 5 or 6 different attacks. And I watched this video twice. I watched it, and then I got to the end, just
You watch
played
start
again.
again.
Yeah, and then I figured out that I really like watching talks and reading blog posts, and I kind of ditched the Microsoft Learning site
Yes.
and just started reading everything I see related to this. Andy Robbins have a lot of blog posts about like
Yes. And he's
Azure
awesome.
Hound and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Exactly. So I read, I think, all of them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a good angle as well, right? Like learning from real world stories is very different to reading something for a long time and then trying to remember that. When we listen to the stories, we like, even though you might have listened to it like many years back, you would still remember parts of the story and then you can connect the dots. Yeah, so that like I find that an easy way as well, as people share stories, and which is what I want to do in the podcast as well, right? Because you don't sit down to write a story as a blog post. It's a different medium, and telling stories is a good way to learn from other people's experience. Yeah, so that's really neat. So with that, and what was the tool that you built? Like, do you want to
Oh,
share
so it
that?
was
Yeah.
like a combination of my army experience, which is like working with big data and just trying to get the best from logs and stuff like that, just trying to learn whatever I can. So I just it started with me, like Dirk spoke about some privilege escalation from on-prem to Entra. So like sync using the SMTP match mechanism, sync like a user, and then you overwrite the password so you can authenticate as global admin and stuff. And then Microsoft, they fixed it, so you can't sync into high privilege accounts in Entra. And then I was like, I want to test it. I don't know why. I also, it was like in the period when I was very afraid of doing hands-on stuff. I
Right.
was 100% in reading, but like when it comes to actually doing something, I was so
Yeah.
scared. So I tried and they fixed it, so it didn't work. And I was like, what about eligible roles? Like, is it still blocked? And it wasn't. It wasn't blocked. And then I was like, oh my God, that's cool. So I started working on it, on like how to detect it when someone escalates, like overrides password and escalates privileges and stuff like that. And then I started working with the logs, with the sign-in logs and the audit logs. And I love logs. This is everything I did in the army. So like I
Yeah.
really love logs, and like people underestimate group buy. Like doing group buy on logs, it makes you understand a lot of stuff. So I just started playing with this, and then I was like, maybe I'll write something similar to stuff I used to do in the army. So I just wrote a tool for defenders, something that I have a lot of experience in because I'm from the defensive world. I mean, for a while I tried offensive research, but I don't have like the training for it, and I'm not very good at it. So yeah, that's the true. But I think I'm pretty good at trying to detect stuff, and like I don't give up. So like if I see something, I'm like, okay, I'm sure there is some sort of anomaly here. So I just wrote a tool that collects all kind of logs and then just outputs a report uh, about like the user. So it's more like it's not for like a daily usage. It's like if you're investigating an attack and okay, this user was compromised, then I think using this tool today can be very helpful. I know Microsoft have a lot of stuff for it, but some of them are like only if you pay for features like yeah. So this is like free, and you put the username and then it reads the logs and it outputs like a report with information about the user, but also
Nice.
like a graph view of activities that the user performed, that someone performed on the user, and like
Right.
stuff like that. So yeah, I think it was nice at the time. It was like a small
Nice.
stuff I did,
Yeah.
and then I was like, I think it can be pretty helpful for people like me. So
Yeah. Yeah. And so you just download it all. You download the logs into your desktop, and then you use your tool to pass through that and then be able to answer questions
yeah,
or
the
create
tool
the
uh,
reports.
the
Yeah.
tool reads them using Graph API, like it's Python tool, so like reads them automatically, and then it just you put user, you put
Nice.
like your password, so because you need to read the logs, and then
Yeah.
you just output the report, and I think it can be nice for people like me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a good way to know how everything works under the
Yeah,
wings, right? By
yeah.
yourself and trying things
Mhm.
out. Nice. Nice. So what's a typical day for you?
So we have this security magazine in Israel. It's in
Right.
Hebrew, and it's not like for publishing new researchers. It's more for just giving people kind of like I'm trying to think how to say it. Um, just help people and give them the complicated blog posts in English. So just
Right.
a short version of them in Hebrew, just to help you start. Like you can read it and they're like, oh, it looks interesting. Now I know like the concept of it, and now I
Right.
can read it in English, and it would be less complicated. So I started publishing there because I figured out that if I write something
Mhm.
I understand it pretty
Yes.
well,
Yeah.
because when you need to explain something to someone else, you need to
Yeah.
make sure you understand it. So I
Yes.
started publishing there. So each time Dirk Jan uploaded a blog post, and
Yeah.
it was hard to understand for me, I
Yes.
just sat down for a couple of hours and I read the video, I stop, I write to myself, and then when I finish, I write it as a blog post in that magazine. Obviously, I give like 100% credit, and I was like, here is a short version of Dirk Jan's
Nice.
blog post and stuff like that. And this was like a world change for me. Um, so yeah, I started with this, and then I realized that I'm looking for a community. This is what helps me to get better. This is why I share on Twitter, for example, and I do it everywhere I go. So at work, when I started to work at CrowdStrike, I just searched every Slack channel related to cloud research, Entra, Azure, whatever, and I just joined in. And each time I saw an interesting post or something, I just sent a message, hey, check this out. I have some detection ideas. Maybe someone wants to collaborate on this research or stuff like that. And it got really like it's a thing now. I every week I send a mail with it, kind of like Entra News, like that you do,
Right.
but inside my company, and I add like for each blog post or stuff like that, I add like Jira ticket with detection idea or research idea or something
Nice.
like that.
Nice.
And this is really helpful. So it makes me like I always updated, like because I have to. So
Yes.
this is very helpful. Yeah. And I think you spoke about it before that there are people that in this industry for such a long time that it's not like for me when I started to learn this stuff, they already exist. So
Yes.
I need to learn all the stuff that already exists, but I also need to learn the new stuff
New
because I
stuff.
need to
Yeah.
stay
Keep.
updated. And
Yes.
like in Entra, in Azure in general, when like you have vulnerabilities released and stuff like that, they immediately get fixed. They get fixed
Yeah.
before they released. It's not
Yeah.
like on-prem when you have like unpatched machine and stuff like that, so
Right.
everything is
Yeah.
still relevant.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, I want to learn everything I missed. Because even though it's not relevant like vulnerability wise, but it's
Yeah.
important.
Yes.
And on the other hand, like every 2 days, someone released, like Microsoft releases a new feature and like continuous access to evaluation, like every small stuff that someone releases. So I have these two stuff, and it's opposed to people that like they learned the feature because it came out when they were in the industry. So it's
Yeah.
different.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, so I think it's way harder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And when you know the history, it's a little easier to remember because you know how a feature was built. So it sort of makes it easy because you know the story behind
exactly. It
the
makes
feature.
sense. You know
It
what
makes
was
more
the
sense, right?
problem, and this was the
Right.
fix for that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you know only the end state, it's a little harder to remember, like, and, connect the dots. When I started working with Entra 2014, 15, conditional access was like so simple back then, right? And now I'm looking if someone comes in new, there's so much there already with the different combinations and the different options. It was so much simpler before then. Like you didn't have security attributes. You had the grant was really simple. It was just grant block and doing MFA. Like there were literally only those options. And then the other things came, and now you have all the global secure access. So it is. I do understand the how daunting it will be for someone coming in new to know, like, what are the basics and what are the advanced things. And you touched on a few different things which I think are really important, right? When we speak about someone coming in and learning these things, I used to have a teacher who was telling me, um, he like I had to teach him something, like something in the computing. Like he we worked in a school back then, and then he said, the trick to learning is to teach someone, because when you need to teach someone, you need to collect your thoughts and you need to organize it in your brain, and just your mind going through those steps, basically you learn, you master that topic, right? Because you
exactly.
need
This
to.
is my method, basically.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you can't just stumble your way through it, right? You're without even thinking much, you sort of organize everything, and just that process, your mind is able to connect the dots and remember it. So he was always like, wait, I'll teach you. And he was teaching like something that I taught him. He was like, wait, and he was repeating, teaching it back to me to sort of reinforce that what he just learned, which was a neat thing. And I think that's a trick that I do as well. And because of me like sharing things, because for me to share a topic, even though I do like small infographics or just, make it very simple, but for me to explain that in a simple way, I still need to understand and read
Yeah,
what it
yeah,
is. So
100%.
that's a neat way for me. Like my trick is again that, right, to remember that and share. And that's why I really appreciate people who take the time to write blog posts and share it, because they're helping others, but they're also helping themselves quite a lot in sort of putting that together, and it helps more people than just them. So that's good, and even asking questions from
That was
others
my next
in
stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
like in work, I have these people from like different groups in crowds. Like that's what I love in crowds. Like that we have, I don't know, a lot of people
Yes,
working in crowds.
I
Like,
can
but
imagine.
yeah, but you can find people from each group, and you can share with them the same interest. I have like most of the people in work I talked with about Entra, they are
Right,
not from my team.
right,
And we have these groups, the Slack channels, and if someone asks a question, I'm like leave everything I do, no matter what time it is, and I'm trying to find the answer for him. And I think from this, I learned the most. Like, there are people from your threat hunting. So I don't do threat hunting. I do it for fun, but it's not like my job. So when they ask questions, this is the most interesting part because they see stuff on customers. They see the real attacks. And they see something weird in the logs and they're like, "Hey, can someone explain to me like which scenario can cause this?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm
right.
going to try to do it. I want to." So yeah, this is very, very, very good learning experience.
Nice,
Yeah.
excellent. Because there's always that disconnect, right? Because when you're focused in that one narrow thing, you don't know how, like, how the product is used and how people, overcome challenges with the different features as well. So that's a neat way. Nice. So, what's your vision? You want to be the ultimate defender in life?
That's a good question. So I wanted to be the ultimate offensive researcher, and then I realized it's not my thing. And then I realized I am good at the defensive side, and also I want to like I think it's a great challenge. It I I don't feel like I always feel like there is a challenge. Every new attack, every new weird anomaly in the logs, even understanding Entra logs. Not that I'm here to
Mhm.
like trash Microsoft or something, like I love Microsoft, but figuring out latency issues even and stuff that are not 100% security, but just working with logs and settings and understand how to detect the most complex attacks. Like I think the Windows Hello for Business, like stealing PRTs and all of this stuff, this is like the next gen of attacks in Entra, and this is like my favorite thing to try to understand and detect. Yeah, so what's my mission? I think to first of all be the best at my job. This is like the most important thing for me. I love my job and I want to be good at it. But also like maintaining the community. So like I really love being on Twitter. I love the fact that people just the knowledge sharing there. It's amazing. It's like for
Yes.
free. You can just discuss ideas, and I love to talk. When I
Yeah.
think about something, like I don't know if it's correct, if it's interesting, and I want to know what other people think. Maybe I'm missing something. So yeah, so I want to be good at my job, but like maintaining the security Entra community, which is I think something that you also put as a mission for yourself, and you do it so well, and I love being a part of it. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah. This podcast has been sort of like that, getting all the people I interact with in Twitter and Blue Sky and LinkedIn, and getting them over to talk. So, what are the parts of Entra do you look at? Like you mentioned, sign-in logs. What are the other things that you are very interested to look into, which you think maybe people miss out on?
100% graph activity log. I
Right.
think this is underestimated. I know that there are ways to bypass it, and we have the Azure AD PowerShell, and then you can like the Windows Net endpoint.
AD graph endpoint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and still, I think this is a really really good log. And I played with it for a couple of weeks, and we can do really good detections, like powerful and I think
Yes.
people just, first of all, you need to configure it and it costs money. So
To
also,
enable,
like,
right?
I think as a customer, I'm not a customer, but as a customer, I'm not sure. Like, I want to see the value before I extra
Yeah.
pay for something like that. So I don't think a lot of customers will enable it. Like, I don't know, but I understand. I can understand why people want, like, be very familiar with it as opposed to
Yeah.
audit and signing that it's just there. So
Yes,
that's
yeah.
a huge
So the
difference.
feature itself is free from Microsoft. I mean, the graph activity
Yeah,
logs
but you need
you
to,
can
like,
turn on.
put it somewhere.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the whole storage and
yeah, the storage.
getting it out.
And
And
also, I can understand. This is like, I always compare it to LDAP in Active Directory. So it's basically the same. And I know that collecting LDAP traffic, it's like, it's a headache because
yes.
everyone is doing these queries all the time. So it's going to
Yeah.
be a huge storage. So I can understand, but I think this can be a very, very powerful log source.
Yes.
Um, so
It's literally like an X-ray, right? Anything any app does, it goes
exactly.
into the graph activity
Yeah,
log. So you get a lot of interesting information as well. And just today, the feature came out where you can actually track the session
exactly.
from the sign into the graph activity and so on can all be tracked across the board. Yeah, so that's definitely true. So I think one thing is people don't are not fully aware of the feature being there, graph activity logs being there. But the other one is once they find out, they go like, this is like gigs of data a day. That's
Yeah,
depending
exactly.
on the size of the tenant. Because every time someone even opens a file in OneDrive, like that will trigger an activity log
Yeah.
being written
And we
there, right?
know
That's
how attackers love reading mails and, like, searching SharePoint sites, and everything
yeah,
is there. So maybe enumeration, like, so you have, row tools. So it doesn't use Microsoft Graph. But when you need to do something, maybe not enumeration, maybe enumeration it's easy to bypass. But when you want to read mail or Teams messages, so you need Microsoft Graph. And this is where the good detections
come
yeah,
in, right?
yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's absolutely. And for me, I'm more on the consuming side of graph or using graph to do things. So it's very interesting to hear from the other side of looking at the data and the signals that it generates. Nice. What other features have you looked at?
So because I come from the on-prem research, so everything related to synchronization, Entra Connect, Windows Hello for Business, everything that combines on-prem, like joint devices and stuff like that. This is something that I did a huge research on it because it's, first of all, it's interesting. Second, I believe this is very, maybe not now, but it's going to be common because people do, like, I don't have a lot of information about what's going on in the real world. It's not my job. But I think I would assume that people will configure Windows Hello for Business in workplace and stuff like that, or at least like joint device, maybe not Windows Hello for
Yeah,
Business. But and I think we're going to see more of this kind of traffic and
yeah,
configuration and stuff like that. So this is very interesting. I don't see a lot of research for, like, combining data from on-prem with the data from Entra and just trying to detect, like, attacks like this. I think this can be like crazy detections over there. So yeah, this is very interesting for me. Yeah.
nice. Yeah, the hybrid world is always a thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it produces a lot of challenges as well, both from securing things and uh, securing it. But that's the world we live in, right? People still need those capabilities. We would like to move people more to the cloud because it's a lot more based on modern protocols and you can have a better control of things, which eventually would happen as the legacy footprints, reduce, more people move things to the cloud, and then that's going to be easy. Nice. So tell me about your experience as a woman in tech, challenges you face, and how,
Yeah.
we can help.
There are challenges. I want to say that I know guys have challenges as well. It's just not the same challenges. So I don't want it to look like only women have these issues or something. But I think insecurity is a huge one. I know everyone suffer from like insecurity and imposter syndrome. Like I know everyone have it, not only women. But yeah, it's there and you can feel it. In like community, it's very like you can see I'm the only woman when you come to conferences of stuff like that. So when I talked at Troopers last year, I'm like a 24 years old woman
Yeah.
stands on the stage and like more than 50 men
Yeah.
like adult men
Indeed.
stand and listen to me. And it's hard, I think. First of all, there's the insecurity situation, but
Mm.
also it sometimes can be unpleasant because, as I said, I'm searching for a community, so I like to talk with people and I'm a nice
Yeah.
person. So I want to be treated as one of the guys because
Yeah.
the community is guys and that's fine for
Yes.
me. But sometimes it can look like I'm like maybe overly nice, or like I don't know how to
Right.
describe it, but I want to be a part of this thing.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm trying to, but but we can't ignore the fact that I'm not one of the guys. I'm just
Yeah.
not. So yeah, it's not always nice, it's not always easy. Not everyone online can be like, not everyone are nice.
Yes, yeah. There,
um,
there is like I having like so my wife is she grew up being more like a tomboy, and she's the same. Like I'm more of an introvert, but my wife is an extrovert. She'll make friends with people like in an instant, and she's really good at that. But some people sort of mistaken it for oh she likes me, and they go
exactly,
down a different path when she's just being friendly, like just a bit.
exactly.
So like that I know is a real challenge when
Yeah,
you're
it
trying
is.
to balance this.
And like I worked only in two companies, but in both of them I was the only girl in the security team. So yeah, it's okay. I
It's
don't
hard.
have any, yeah, but sometimes it can be unpleasant, like in
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm just trying to. This is what I got. So I'm just working with what I have. Also, I have this issue where I know that if I was a man, I probably wouldn't be here on the podcast, or maybe I wouldn't have that many people that like answering me on Twitter, or maybe I wouldn't even get accepted to conferences because I know like conferences care about
Yeah.
increasing the amount of women that talks there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can make you feel weird because I want to be considered as a technical person, as a professional, or maybe as someone that aspires to be
Yes.
professional. And I don't want people to say, oh, she's here because she's a woman and there are
Yeah.
only maybe
Exactly.
3 women, so
Yeah.
it's something. So this is like it comes together with the insecurity because you know that you got to some places because
Yeah.
you're a woman. And people also tell you this sometimes, like, oh, this is because you're a woman, so you got accepted, obviously. So yeah, it can be a bit painful. Like also I don't have like, I'm a woman, I know, but I don't have like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to change it. So I'm
Yeah.
just
It's
doing,
not. It's not something we can change, right?
yeah. So yeah, it can be a bit, but I never felt like people prejudge me like for being a woman. Like I didn't felt like someone said, "Oh, she's probably don't know what she's talking about because she's a woman." I always felt appreciated. So because I know there is some conception about maybe women feels like people disregard them. I'm not sure like what's the correct word here. So I don't
Yeah.
feel it. I feel like if I'm doing a good job, then people in my work will believe I'm doing a
Yeah.
good job, and they won't be like, I'm not sure, she's a woman, maybe it's not like good. No, I
Yeah.
don't feel it. Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. You've been
Yeah.
lucky in that way. And yeah, like I do get that, you always need to prove yourself and you need to go the extra mile to prove yourselves. And like the reason I wanted like to have you especially and the others that I've recorded as well is like they are doing things which I admire and respect, and I've learned from. Like everyone I bring on the podcast are folks that I've learned from because something they've shared, something they've asked in the past, and I've learned from the experience that they've gone through and done. So that's my reason for bringing you on board, and then learning from you, right? They're just having this conversation will help us learn.
I
Nice.
hope so, and thank you. It's a huge honor for me to be part of this. I know that I'm, as we said in the beginning, in my early career, so I just started. I'm trying all sorts of stuff, but it's not like I'm consider myself to be something. I'm trying to be something,
Yes.
but it's still work in progress. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that you see what I'm trying to do. So that's nice.
Yes. Yeah. We're all learning in different stages, right? Like I'm new to identity and IAM
Really? Wow,
as a whole
I
compared to
didn't, it doesn't feel like it. Yeah.
I'm relatively very new. So I'm learning, and it's not that I know everything. It's more of like, trying to learn from others and share the little bit that I learn with more of a wider audience. Right. So going back to the stuff that you work on and that that how you study things, um, you mentioned something about prevention instead of just detection. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, so when I started, I was like, oh, offensive attacks, detections and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And then when I exposed more to what's going on in the real world, I understood that there are more than detecting attack. There is more than this. So prevention, or like understand conditional access policies, for example. So this is something that as a defender, even though we don't see a lot of like trying to think how to say it, like interesting bypasses. There was this one of the Microsoft Intune company portal. So this was like, I really enjoyed this one. But other than that, it's more of like the administrative side of Entra and less from the like cool research vulnerability stuff. So I was like, I don't care about it. It doesn't matter. And then after like 2 years or something, I was like, okay, this is very important. So like there is more than just say, oh, we can detect it, because to you want to know more. You want to say we can detect it, but also like we can help you prevent it. We can explain to the
Yeah.
customer what it needs to do to just create a better tenant or environment configuration
Right.
settings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So this is something that always for me, I in my head it was like, oh, it's not cool, it's not
Yeah.
like
It's not a
some.
flashy thing, right? Like
Yeah,
going and hardening the settings.
exactly. But it's so important, and also you study a lot from understanding what's the right configuration that we, so all these different small settings. For example, the one that I don't remember who taught, oh, I think it was John Seville, which I also recommend his videos. Maybe I didn't pronounce his name correctly, so
No,
but
no, it's fine. Yeah.
so he talked in his last video, I think, about this small toggle that makes you the owner of Azure and not only the tenant, like global administrator, so you can
Yeah.
just own the resources and like subscription owner and stuff like that. And this is like, this is one
Yeah.
toggle, but it's so important.
Yes.
So yeah, I stopped underestimating stuff like this, and now I know this is like understanding how to like the hardening of the environment and stuff like that. This is, I want to understand how to do it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Like, and there's so many settings to go
Yeah.
through, and it's not like you can turn everything on because if you do all that, you'll end up with a tenant that barely works. when,
Exactly. Yeah.
because people still want to like invite guests in, still want to collaborate with them
Yeah.
and run their business, because without that, they don't have a business in the first place to to pay for things. So there's that fine line, and different organizations view security in a different way versus productivity and what they want to get done. So there is a bunch of default config, and as Microsoft have announced as well through the SFI initiative, they are working through secure by default and secure by design, and you can see they're pushing out different managed conditional access policies by default, because uh, it's hard to get people to turn things on.
Yeah, I know.
There aren't that many that know as well what to do. So these managed CA policies are an easy way to push things out. But even that needs to be done really carefully so we don't break a tenant, right? Like
Yeah.
when we say break a tenant, just seeing a new MFA prompt will feel broken to customers, right? And so
Yeah.
you need to really give them that in advance. Um, as you do that. So yeah, there are things that Microsoft is doing, because some of these settings were there from like way back in 2014, right, when it was first introduced, and now going and changing it without any comms and so on in each
Yeah.
tenant, it's not an easy thing depending
Yeah,
on
you need
which features
to,
are used. Yeah.
it's like the client responsibility to manage their settings. So like if they have application that supports legacy authentication, Microsoft can't do anything with it because they need it. But it's bad. This is exactly what makes them vulnerable. The fact that
Yes.
they like, oh, we can't change it because it exists for like 10 years now and we can't change it. Okay, but then later this exact app is what's going to make you vulnerable. So yeah, device code flow. So I know a lot of companies use it for like the tablets in the conferences
Right.
room. So they use device
Right.
code flow. So they
Yeah.
won't disable it. They won't not disable, but create the conditional access policy for it. Okay, but later, like we see so many blog posts now about device code flow, phishing attacks, and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
can
a setting that
understand.
came out like a year and a half ago, but then the attackers also learned about it, and then
Yeah.
they started using it more,
Yeah.
and it caught out the organizations that didn't really roll those things out. But yeah, it's not that easy to just turn it on, because it's an additional work, right, on top of whatever the admins are
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
They need to turn on, but also monitor that they didn't cause an outage, and now someone can't use the meeting room booking system because you blocked
Yeah.
the device code flow. Yeah, so yeah, it's something they need to balance out.
Yeah. I think I know there is a role for it, but I think you need to put more focus on a role of someone that's just responsible for updating your environment. So like I know that it's hard to do changes in big environments that exist for a long time, but people just don't understand how important it is. I saw it in the army a lot because it's so scary to break something
Right.
that is like you need it for stuff that you do in the army.
Yes. Yeah.
So people just no, I can't touch this. It's too
Yeah.
dangerous. But not touching it, it's also
Is
so
even more
dangerous.
dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you find even when I was working in an org, they had become so risk averse because they had done some change and it broke a lot of things and cost. It came out in the public news. So over the years, they had come to a point where just to change one setting, you need to do like 3 months ahead. You need to start planning for it, and you need to write these huge documents, and you need to write these test plans, and there are reviews of just the document reviews. You will have 3 or 4 every week, and like you spend a month writing the documents, and how you test it and all, then a whole month reviewing it, making changes, and at the end the actual change would be just 5 minutes to
Yeah,
do
I'm
the change.
I'm very familiar with this process, unfortunately. So yeah,
Yes,
and then
it
people just say, I just won't do it because it's too much work.
Yes, yeah. There
Yeah.
have been like you give up, right? Some people give up doing
Yeah.
that completely, and then you fall into that reverse pattern where like things break and you're so far behind,
Yeah.
and they just go through and do it. So yeah, it's I think when you make a mistake, it sort of causes the like all the red tape to come over time, and you build in a lot of process to do those things. And for every org, I feel it's a wave where you go like very strict, you don't do any changes and nothing happens. Then someone comes in suddenly and says, why are we taking so long? Let's just get rid of all this process and make it simpler. And then they go to the other extreme where nothing is documented and they just are making changes
Let's turn on everything.
in the tenant. Yeah, turn on, turn off, and they go to the other side, and it's a balance where it's always a swing. It's like a pendulum. Every org goes from one end to the other, and especially if you're compromised, then like lots of changes happen really fast, and then people like break things and so on, and then it's a pendulum back the other way, and it plays out in like small logs to big logs as well. I've seen it,
Yeah. There
and
is no
as
like
you,
a solution for it. It's just try and error.
yes, and it's just learn like what I have learned seeing it over the years is to take advantage of it, because there are times when you can't do any change and it's really hard. And when the pendulum swings the other way and you're like given a free ticket, like to go ahead and do things, then you can just make use of that time to do all the things you wanted to do,
Yeah.
in
Before someone
rapid
changes
fast time.
mind.
Before, like gradually it'll go back into that
Yeah,
phase.
yeah.
But it's, making use of that time to have it, right? So you should uh, come up with have that list of top things you want to do and have it somewhere so when
When
there's an
someone
emergency you
says
can just you take it out and go, okay, here you go, this is what we need to do and these are the things.
that's a
So
good method.
it's
I would recommend
yeah.
it. I don't see like you need to do it, so just go for
Yeah,
it.
just plan for it, right?
Yeah.
Like you can come in, and sometimes it's an emergency that happens to you. In Australia, it happened recently, not recently, like a year or two back. One of the insurance companies, they got compromised, and then a lot of the customers I was working with for a long time to do certain things, they went, and the smart customers, they went saying, we didn't get compromised because of that, but we need to act as if it happened to us. What should we do? Right. So that was very smart of that company, where they were like,
Yeah.
I'm going to treat my like competitor or this other org, which is, very similar to them in size and all that, but it like went on the news, all the, like it was very public. So instead of that same incident happening to them, their CISO went like, what if it, like, we should treat as if it happened to us? We should bring that emergency and like we should do things to make sure that it doesn't happen to us. So that's, I think, a really smart way for an organization. And for me, who was helping that customer, it became very easy then, because they came like, okay, what should we do? And I
Yeah,
said
they
like,
have
yeah,
the
this is what,
motivation.
yes,
Yeah.
to
But
do
I
that,
think
right?
like maybe I'm a bit pessimistic, but I think that until it happens to you, you don't believe it's going to
Yes, it's
happen to
very
you.
different. It is very different
So
until it happens.
yeah,
Yeah,
I honestly believe that like acting like it happened to you and then you have the motivation to do it. This is like the best way to go. But
yeah,
most people, they're just that's not gonna happen to us,
that's
and
true.
then
Yeah,
it happens to them as well.
yeah. And
Yeah,
it's human nature, right? Because you have your priorities, you have your projects and things
yeah,
that you're doing, and usually asked to do things on top of it. Until there's an emergency, then they go like, stop everything you're doing and just do this. Then, you can focus and do on that. But yeah, like that's, as someone who works in the cycle, we just need to be prepared for the day when you're asked to do things. You can pull out that notebook you have with all the list of things you written
yeah,
and you want to do, and go like, here's a plan on
yeah.
how we can do it. So that'll be very interesting. I've seen it happen when there's an emergency or when there's a change in the leadership. There's someone new comes in with a completely different perspective, and they go like, "Why are we doing this?" Like they ask, like, "Why are we doing this? We should be, doing it the other way." And that sort of perspective
Yeah, I think
definitely
it happens every time you have management changes. So like new manager comes and he want to like do something new because he is new, so we want to like do
yes.
something, and then it just change stuff just for the change. So sometimes it's for the
Sometimes
good, sometimes it's not.
it
Yeah,
does sometimes feel like that, but sometimes it's because they've learned things or they've seen it working a different way, and then they want to bring in that way of
yeah,
working, which sometimes is good, but sometimes there are nuances in the different company, right,
yeah.
that you're working with. Nice. Awesome. Sapir, it's been awesome having you on. What are some things you would like to leave the audience with?
I think I would want to say that just always say yes for everything. So if someone asks you a question, just try to answer it. If someone suggests you to be on his podcast, even though you're afraid from like the English and maybe someone won't like you, just say yes. You got accepted into conference and like you're not sure about it, just say yes. But I think
Nice.
just doing stuff, okay, maybe it won't be the best, but it makes you go forward. And I
Yes.
think this is what helped me the most. I didn't afraid to try to publish this tool or to just try this new attack. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't, but maybe it will. So I think just don't be afraid to try whatever comes. I think this is what helped me the best. Just do
Nice.
stuff. Yeah.
That is an amazing, like that's an awesome tip, and it's something I tell my kids as well. Like we all in this consuming economy now. We are
Yeah.
consuming things all the time on our phones and all our devices, and I keep telling them, be the person who creates things, because there's very little competition there.
Yeah.
There's only like a few percentage of people who create things, and yeah, going sharing talks, and even within your organization, sharing like whatever it is, right, you start with. That's an amazing feeling, and then once you do it, you'll go like, yes, it's you go like, I don't want to ever do this again. But
Yeah.
then as you keep doing it more, you'll go, yeah, it's not
Yeah.
like that bad, it becomes second
Yeah.
nature.
Basically, I'm publishing Nike's logo. Just do it. So just do
Yes.
it. Just
Just do it.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be perfect. That's the other thing I've learned. Like,
Yeah.
even for me, English is not my first language. It's not my mother tongue, and yeah, I make a lot of mistakes as I'm
Same as you
speaking as
saw.
well. Yes, but I think it doesn't matter. It's more our experience and what we've learned, and sharing that with others.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has
Thank you.
been a really good interview, and I hope folks, especially folks who are like coming in new into identity and cybersecurity, will be able to draw inspiration from you and continue their journey.
I hope so too.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Sapir.
you for having me.
We'll catch you on Twitter and LinkedIn.
100%.